Good afternoon and welcome to the June 3rd special called meeting of the DeKalb Board of Registration and Elections. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we could go ahead and get the roll call.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members. When I call your name, please respond by saying here. Vice Chair Nancy Jester.
Here.
Anthony Lewis.
Here.
Chairperson Dele Loman Smith.
Here.
Susan Motter.
Here.
And Carly Swift. Here. Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve today's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Ms. Austin, we can begin public comments.
Public comment of 2 minutes or less will be made live via teleconference. For those joining the meeting by telephone, please be aware that your phone number may be displayed to the public viewing or participating in the online meeting. Citizens who attend the meeting via the Zoom link may join public comment by raising their hand in the Zoom application, while citizens who attend the meeting via telephone may join the comment queue by pressing pound, followed by the number 2. There will be no comment card, so when you are called upon, please state your name for the record. Also, be conscious of speaking time so that everyone has an opportunity to provide input in the allotted time. Abusive, profane, or derogatory language will not be permitted.
Thank you very much, Ms. Austin, and thank you, Madam Chair. As a friendly reminder, if you would like to speak during this public comment session, please identify by using the raise hand feature, #2 if you are on a phone. And again, please keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. Our first request is from Marcy McCarthy. I'll ask Marcy to unmute. If she would like to start her video, she may, and please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, everybody. This is Marcy McCarthy, and I reside at 2515 Brookline Circle in Brookhaven, Georgia, 30319, and I'm the chairman of the Republican Party of DeKalb County. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. I'm asking specifically to have our Board of Elections to agree on a targeted hand count of several races due to the situation with District 2 Commissioner Democrat primary. Upon the discovery today of the Raidus report, we've seen an addition of 419 votes that are not explained. In several, let me put my readers on. 2,779 no votes, which have never been reported before. We started this race with 3 candidates and 12,639 votes on a machine count. Our second count was completed on June 1st with 15,449 votes and 4 candidates, 1 withdrawn. And then today we see a total number of votes with no votes, 18,647, but 15,668 of them actually being cast with actual votes. I have a great discomfort, and as many of all of us here today do with the rest of this our elections, we have to find out if this is an isolated situation to one race, or is it really systemic throughout several other races that we haven't even discovered yet. I'm requesting a recount or a hand count specifically in 3 races. The Republican Secretary of State's race to give a baseline accuracy in that we're looking to see a countywide, statewide race that would have all precincts across our county. Our second recommendation is to do School Board District 2. And we're asking for that because there's a 13 precinct overlay with the 40 precinct Democrat primary commissioner 2 race. And additionally, this is a nonpartisan race that had 4 candidates and is also in a runoff situation and would have a ballot. They would have appeared on a ballot in a Republican, Democrat, and a nonpartisan race. So it's a really good one to go look at. Additionally, the third one is House District 82. There's been some discrepancies as it's turning out between the precincts that are there the information that's on the DeKalb County Elections website that's being reported in difference to the Secretary of State's website. So we're concerned about that race, and we want to look at both the Democrat and the Republican primary. And we also would encourage that our Democrat friends to pick a race of their own that is causing a little bit of concern outside of the Commissioner 2 race. Again, at the end of the day, we're simply wanting to have fitness, faith, integrity, and trust in our elections. We have more questions today than we did a few days ago, and certainly on May 24th. So I would encourage us to take a step back, do the due diligence that is needed, and ultimately make sure that when we certify these elections, we can 100% say these are fair, accurate elections. So when we go into November, we have the confidence that all electoral votes will count and matter. Thank you very much.
And thank you for your comments. Our next request is from Garland Favorito. I will ask him to start his video and unmute. And please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. I'm Garland Favorito. I'm the co-founder of Voter GA, Voters Organized for Trusted Election Results. I want to thank the board for your commitment to ensure accuracy of the vote count prior to certification. I asked our team of experts to look at the District 2 discrepancies in the audit, and I sent you a letter today at noon with our preliminary findings. We determined that the discrepancies cannot be solely attributed to an error after a candidate withdrew from the race for at least 3 reasons. 1, the audit showed the current Dominion system simply failed to count roughly 1,300 votes, regardless of how the candidates are aligned on the ballot. 2, an alignment mismatch typically shows all one candidate's votes reported for a second candidate and all of that candidate's votes reported for a third candidate. The District 2 discrepancies don't fit that pattern. 3, a ballot definition mismatch between scanners and BMDs would show similar discrepancies for all in-person voting. In District 2, the discrepancies are far more prevalent on election day than on early voting. Given these facts, we made the following logical conclusions. 1, there are far more serious system counting errors than a ballot definition misalignment would cause. 2, many of the errors that occurred are outside the control of DeKalb County's election staff. 3, other races may have the same errors and discrepancies, so there is a severe need to audit them as well. 4, to verify the results of any races not audited, copies of the ballots produced independently of the voting system are needed. Our request is still pending to do that, and you have no liability for producing those records under Open Records Request Law, OCGA 50-1873. In conclusion, this is the only Georgia 2022 primary race that has been audited, and its electronic results cannot be trusted. I thank all of you for not succumbing to outside pressure to certify an election that likely has incorrect results.
Thank you so much for your comments. Our next request is from Janine Milam. I will ask her to unmute. If she would like to start her video, she may, and please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Janine Milam. I reside at 1599 Springbrook Drive, Decatur, Georgia, 30033. I am the Republican candidate for House District 82. First, I'd like to thank everybody for their diligent work and hard work, long hours that they've put into trying to get everything understood. I sent the board a letter today. There are 2 things that we have concerned. I represent 5 candidates in total. There are 5 precincts that seem to be part of, there's 2 databases that are reported on the DeKalb website. There are 5 precincts that are reported on the second one, and 2 of those precincts are in my district, but the 5 of us represent all 5 of those precincts. They are also, 4 of those precincts are of concern in the Commissioner 2 race. So there's a 5th one that looks like it may have some problems as well, and we haven't uncovered what all that might include. So I want to suggest that that is looked into further. And the second thing is the totals for my race and my Democrat counterpart for House District 82. The numbers, there are 2 totals that are on the DeKalb website. for example, my race specifically, part one had 2,159 votes, and part two was 223 votes. That total for the two together is 2,382. The Secretary of State's website reports 2,368. So there's a difference there. I would like an answer to why, what numbers you're going to be all going to be certifying, where you're getting those numbers from, and where the Secretary of State is getting those numbers. So those are my concerns that I'd like to see addressed. Thank you.
And thank you so much for your comments. Our next request is from someone on iPhone. If you could state, you can unmute if you'd like. And state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Diana Doma. I was a mayoral candidate in the city of Stonecrest race. The night of the election, I received several texts indicating that there was some problems with counting the votes in the Stonecrest race. The text messages began to come in at 7:54 p.m. and went until about 10 p.m. that night. The next day, I visited the Board of Election and I requested a recount in my race for many different reasons. I gave them those reasons in writing. I sent an email on May 25th at 9:56 a.m. I sent another email to the board at 5:35 p.m. I sent another email on 5/26 at 11:56 p.m. I requested specific information on those races, including the receipts from the machines, as far as the irregularities, the camera footage at some of the precincts. And as of today, unfortunately, no one have taken the time to respond back to me. I requested a recount. I agreed if there was a cost associated with the recount that I would pay for the recount. In one of the precincts, I literally counted my votes. I've contacted a lot of the voters who have confirmed they voted for me. The numbers just aren't adding up. I'm very disappointed that as of today, no one, not one person have responded back to me. I also went to the Secretary of State's office. I asked for assistance there. I spoke with a Mr. Harris. He referred me back to the Board of Elections to get some type of clarity on what happened so we can close out my campaign. As of today, no one has contacted me. My concern is that voter integrity is being challenged. The electoral process is clearly not fair. If one of the machines went down, maybe multiple machines went down. The numbers in my race are not adding up with the polls we took, and I would like some answers. And as of today, there's been not one response to any of my emails.
Thank you so much for your comments. Our next request is from Susanna Sandoval. I will ask Susanna to unmute. If she'd like to start her video, she may. And please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, good evening. This is Susanna Sandoval, and I actually can corroborate what Diane Odoma, the mayoral candidate in the Stonecrest mayoral election, has just shared, because I actually personally accompanied her. I worked with the campaign. I was with her when she sent the emails. We went into the office and we spoke with the young lady that was working there. We spoke with the Miss Gilbert. I asked her verbally what the process was. We wrote, there was a handwritten letter that was actually dated that is in the possession of the campaign that will show that we were there in person, that Ms. Odoma herself was there in person out of concern for the lack of response to the inquiry of the recount, and also that we we're awaiting still that any kind of response to the campaign in regards to the receipts. I myself have been an election judge. I myself have served as well when there has been technical difficulties when they first started rolling out electronic voting, which I'm now starting to date myself as far as the electoral process. But the concern that exists not just for Georgia, but the concern that exists nationally is to preserve voter integrity and to encourage our electorate to continue voting and continue the public trust that we have. I do know as an election judge how difficult it can be when there are malfunctions. I know that there's logs that of equipment and technicians that have to sign off that there was a process that was done. Those requests were also included in the correspondence of the Adoma campaign in Stonecrest mayoral election. And we were constantly told to, put it in writing, send an email, somebody would get back to us. And in fact, no one has. I do want to say that, while acknowledging that there is a lot of work that is involved, the public trust is in your hands today. If you continue through with certification of the results, not only will Georgia electors doubt the electoral process, but the rest of the country is actually viewing what is happening in Georgia. And I hope that you consider the hard work and the integrity that all of you have at stake in this process. I think that you are in the midst of doing the best that you can. If there was a malfunction with the machines, then we need to do audits of all the machines. If one race, as was stated by one of the previous speakers, you cannot totally guarantee that the other results were clear. If a candidate herself, a campaign, reached out to you directly and still hadn't received a response today, and this is almost, way past a week, then for sure that, there are some communication issues that need to be worked out. And this is a process
That's
that
2 minutes.
should be open to it. I would also recommend that for future, I know that there are open records acts that actually stipulate that by law, you should have an agenda that's posted so people have access to it and are determined. And also while you're doing
Ms. Sandoval, that's 2
Your
minutes.
time has expired. Thank you so much for your comments on Ms. Sandoval. Our next request is from Don Broussard. I will ask Don to unmute. If he would like to start his video, he may. And please state your name and address for the record. Oops, give me 1 second.
I'm Don Broussard.
There you go. And your address?
I live at 1786 Alderbrook Road, Atlanta, Georgia, 30345 in Sagamore Hills. Yes, I'm the fourth and mystery candidate you all could not get out of your voting machines. And it's been very troubling for me to see this problem unfold the last week. Let me bluntly state that my withdrawal from this race on April 11th should not have inflicted the train wreck that has now happened. People withdraw from races all the time. There should be a way to correct that, considering I had 5 weeks to do this. But this has damaged this District 2 race. And it's not what I wanted, and I'm sure it's not what you all wanted. I'm calling for the board to do what you all did on Tuesday and find the legal authority to have a rerun of that District 2 election with the 3 candidates that remain in there. When I withdrew, Gene Wingo and Tina Gilbert responded to my questions that my name would not appear on the ballot. Otherwise, I wouldn't have withdrawn. I would have just stayed in it. So, there were some problems there, and I don't know what they are, and I'm not sure you all know where they are yet. But you know that I was awarded hundreds of votes on the Dominion scanning machines at many of the precincts, and yet I was not on the ballot. So we cannot hide that fact. Calling it a mere tabulation error, as it was done for several days, it does a disservice to the people. It's a tabulation error that was so severe. Apparently your staff could not repeat a machine count like you all had announced last Friday, and you had to abandon it and go to a hand recount, which was so tedious. And I know your staff worked hard on that. I was down here a lot of the time also on that. So in defense of the election staff, the Secretary of State's office did not do you all any favors because they introduced some errors. I think we know that, at least for 5 precincts. The County Commission did favors by changing the boundaries of District 2 in February, which led to some of this. And those changes were largely for political reasons, in my view, to allow one of the candidates to be in the district. The General Assembly shares some blame because this compressed timeline was not fair to everyone around the state. So
Sorry, that's 2 minutes.
yeah, there's blame to go around. So let me say the hand count is clearly flawed. It looks like you all are recognizing that. And I want to call on you to do your duty as a board. And I know you all want to get this right.
Thank
Have a
you.
rerun for District.
And thank you so much for your comments, Mr. Broussard. Our next request is from Andrew Bell. I will ask Andrew to unmute. Give me a moment and he will be able to start his video if you would like to. And please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Andrew Bell. I reside at 2083 Cherrybrook Drive, Decatur, Georgia. Good afternoon. I'm here presently because I'm at a kind of like at a loss for words for what's going on. I actually congratulated my opponent like the day after the election, assuming that, we had a fair election. But over the weekend, I was told about District 2 and, what happened. So I went to the board myself to get the tabulations for the precincts in my district. They failed to give me any kind of correspondence. They said someone would reach out to me. I ended up filing a lawsuit the next day, which was heard today. I'm not going to let it go. When I went on the Secretary of State's website, they did have some polling precinct data. But to my surprise, there were no outliers, which I studied, in school, have a couple of degrees. In most elections, there are outliers. My election is like 2 straight lines, his and mine. There's no deviation. And that really was a red flag to me that he like, for example, the area I live in, you would expect for maybe a slight bump in some of the precincts in my area, or even in his area, maybe a slight bump. So if he was at close to 80%, maybe in his area, it might be an outlier of 90 to 10. Maybe over where I'm at, if it was, so they say 20, 21%, maybe I would get 30% in some of these areas. So being that there were no outliers, that really raised a red flag with me. But at the end of the day, like a lot of people said, if we're using the same machines for all the elections, number one, we have to get a new manufacturer. We got to get some kind of investigation on what happened. Because just like Memorial Day just passed, I know people that died on the battlefield for this very reason. A representative democracy is so people go cast a ballot for who they see fit. And their First and 14th Amendments are being violated. I've requested a recount myself, not necessarily because I feel that I won, but at this point, I don't know if I won or lost. And that's the whole problem, the doubt that's been created by the Board of Registration and Elections. They've created this doubt in people's minds. The lack of transparency has created doubt in people's minds. This is 2022. We need to get cameras in all of these facilities, all of these polling precincts, where we could go back on the camera and see what happened. When you post the result up on the.
And thank you so much for your comments. Unfortunately, the time has expired. Our next request is from Stephen Binney. I will ask Mr. Binney to unmute. If he would like to start his video, he may. And please state your name and address for the record.
Stephen Benny at 1083 Seville Drive, Clarkston, Georgia, 30021. I want to thank everyone for their time and efforts that they have put into this. But I believe that from what I can see, there was more than one problem with the election. The order seems to account for anywhere from 1,300 to 1,600 votes, but there seems to be a lot more votes than that were added to the election total. And therefore, there's more than one type of problem. But when we know for sure is that there is a disconnect between the actual voting machine and the tabulating machine. And they were not apparently on the same program. I have to agree with Mr. Garland in that this second or third deviation brings into question the entire process. And I think that you need to check a lot more races so that you can set some kind of bar as to what is correct and what is not. I also have to agree with Mr. Garland in that I believe the right thing to do here is you're going to have to run this race again. You also see the problem that this race is causing. You're going to get more and more candidates questioning the results of their election. And you need to get this right. Otherwise, everyone's going to be asking for a recount. If you can't get Mr. Broussard's name off in a 5-week period, we need to come up with a better system. Thank you very much. I think I would be very questionable about certifying the election results today, but you are under pressure and you do what you see is best. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for your comments. Our next request is from Lance Hammonds. I will ask him to unmute. If he would like to start his video, he can, and please state your name and address for the record.
Can you hear me now?
We can, sir.
Yes, this is Lance Hammonds. I'm president of the DeKalb NAACP. My address is 6933 Waters Edge Drive in Stone Mountain. And our organization spends an inordinate amount of time that we willingly do to register as many people as possible to participate in our election system. And not casting any dispersion about where fault may lie in this process. But the key thing for us is that we need to have confidence in our election system, that every vote is being counted properly and accurately. If at the end of the day, if you can't answer the question that everything was done properly, every vote was counted, and you can be assured that this election was done properly, then you need to stop and find a way to assure the public, DeKalb County residents, that our election process is intact and we can trust that system. And anything short of that, we need to step back and say, how can we do this to make sure that we always have the trust of the community as far as their vote and making sure that each vote counts. So with that, I'll just stop there and just say, we need to have confidence in our system. And I urge the election board to do whatever it takes to make sure when this process is over, that you can honestly say, and that the citizens feel that their vote really counts and their vote matters. Thank you.
And thank you so much for your comments. Give me one moment, please. Our next speaker request is from Marshall Orson. I will ask Marshall to unmute. If he would like to start his video, he may, and please state your name and address for the record.
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm Marshall Orson, 970 Springdale Road, Atlanta, 30306. I am one of the candidates in the race for the Commission District 2 seat. I did send a letter to each of the board members last night detailing a multitude of reasons why I think this race should not be certified. and that an investigation needs to take place. There is just simply no way there can be public confidence in the outcome of this race. These are reasons I stated even when I was listed in first place, that nothing has changed, that there have been multiple errors in this process, and there is no way to feel confident that not only that the inputs were right, but that the outputs are right. We are saying at the end of the day, for example, that we are going then to ultimately rely on paper ballots for which we cannot have any certainty that the paper ballots are an accurate rendition of what voters voted. But even leading up to that, we know there were multiple issues. We think it was a positional error, but then there are some places in which my votes actually went up, which wouldn't have been ascribed to a positional error. We know that there are candidates that have made the position, which I think was logical, for example, where they saw a 0 vote on election day in a precinct. Well, by the way, you look at the Emory Road precinct, it shows a 0 vote for me on election day. Now that's possible, but given that it is in the midst of the neighborhood in which I live, and it is surrounded by 2 precincts in which I appear to have gotten 60% of the vote, it's probably not a likely outcome. There are multiple other anecdotal examples of where there are problems, and there are certainly system errors that are rife throughout this process. We simply cannot rely on what has been reported to date that this is the right outcome in this election. And again, it is something I was saying when I was listed in first place, and I am now saying it regardless of the position I am in. We also know that there are multiple concerns about these voting systems. In fact, there was a report issued today regarding the Dominion voting system. All these things undermine public confidence. And at the end of the day, our goal must be to ensure that the public can feel confident that the results of the elections actually reflect what the will is of the voters. And there is simply no way for us to reach that conclusion, given the multitude of issues that have arisen. There are also process issues. This process has been taken on in a way that does not comport with the rules and the laws of the state of Georgia. And
thank you for your comments. Unfortunately, the time has expired. Our next request is from Jay Seaver. I will ask her to unmute. If she would like to start her video, she may. And I'm sending you an invite to unmute if you'd like to. All right, while she's maybe trying to work out some technical issues, let's go to Marilyn Marks. Marilyn also has her hand raised, so I'll ask Marilyn to unmute. If she would like to start her video, she may. And please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, thank you. This is Marilyn Marks. I'm Executive Director of Coalition for Good Governance. And I think you've heard a lot already from people explaining why there is so much consternation and lack of confidence in the results. And I know you're facing a very complex problem, but you are in the fortunate position of having, while a complex problem that's going to take a very long time to figure out the cause, you've got the fortunate position of having a very simple solution. And as I have already written you all in the last few days, you've got a simple solution of going straight to a manual discretionary recount for the people who feel that their particular races are under a cloud. You've only got a handful of those people, I believe, and I think that it would be fairly easy if you would conduct a manual recount under the rules, this time using the rules for the state election board for the manual recount, just as it says, not making up rules this time, and take those races where the candidates want a manual recount done, do that next week. And again, I would suggest that you engage CPAs to manage that process for you so that your staff can work on the June 21st runoff. It can be orderly, it can be organized, and it can be transparent. It's a simple solution, an inexpensive solution. An inexpensive solution is what I was trying to say. I hope you'll take this into consideration to have a legal path that will not continue the controversies. And again, I agree, voter confidence that the elections are legitimate is the only thing that will give them confidence that the government is legitimate. So please take this very seriously and adopt a simple, straightforward, and legal solution. Thank you so much for your service and for considering our comments.
And thank you for your comments as well. Let's try again. Jay Seaver, it looks like you have unmuted. If you'd like to start your video, you may. And please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity and for all of y'all being on here to hear what the voters' concerns are. My name is Jeannie Seaver, and I am a qualified candidate to run for Lieutenant Governor here in the great state of Georgia on the Republican ticket. I reached out to I sent an email of a letter that I sent to Secretary Brad Raffensperger, and I received a call back from them. But the bottom line is, thank you to the candidates that were here that disputed what was going on in DeKalb, which I don't think we ever would have known about it statewide unless someone stepped up to the plate to challenge it. And I have asked for, I've asked for a hand recount and the tallying of the machines between the machines, just like when I wasn't interested until I heard what happened in DeKalb, and I'm very grateful to all of you. But I have sent an email, and I just wanted to give you an FYI for those that you're not aware that when I sent an email to you with my letter today to the website, to the email address on your website, I followed up with a phone call, and your people were awesome. I talked to them, and they had told me they hadn't received it. So I sent an email twice and an attachment, and it didn't come through. So I sent it directly with another email to them, and I still haven't gotten the confirmation. So I can understand people being concerned about emails not being received because I think your server is overloaded on trying to get emails. I sent it at 8 o'clock and I was talking to them almost at 12 o'clock. But as Lieutenant Governor and being a candidate and traveling around the state for 14 months, election integrity is very important to all Georgians. And I'm in here not to challenge my own race, but as a qualified candidate, I still would like to see that Georgians need to feel confident. And I would love for DeKalb County to do a recount, a hand count against the, and a forensic audit here for the Lieutenant Governor's race. I have sent it to every county in the state asking for it, also to the Secretary of State. And I very much appreciate your time and the opportunity to say a few words about this. And I would please ask that you consider doing a hand count audit in this county for the Lieutenant Governor's office.
And thank you so much. Thank you so much for your comments. Madam Chair, that exhausts all of the current public requests for comment.
Thank you. So we are at items for decision, and item A is for certification of the May 24th, 2022 general primary and nonpartisan election. And can we get a motion to open discussion, Ms. Motter?
Yes, so that we can have a discussion. I move that the DeKalb Board of Elections certify the results for the May 24th primary.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
That opens discussion.
Right, for discussion. So I'd like to give Ms. Smith the floor to frame our discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, board members. As we all are aware, a technical error in the precinct scanners that impacted the DeKalb County Commission district race was discovered quickly after our unofficial and incomplete tabulations were generated and shared after the May 24th election. To rectify this issue, our first and immediate course of action was to take a comprehensive look at the cause of the error and to determine a proper course forward to ensure each vote cast was reflected in the data we will present to the Board of Registration and Elections to certify. In working with the Secretary of State and in coordination with CES, we are actively isolating those issues that created the perfect storm that has led us to where we are today. Challenges with redistricting, as well as the removal of a candidate from the District 2 contest, required a series of resolutions that ultimately caused a misallocation of votes as displayed during the May 24th unofficial and incomplete summary reports. DeKalb Voter Registration and Elections also worked diligently in line with guidance from the Secretary of State to advance a tabulation method that would yield accurate results in the District 2 contest. Our hand tabulation have yielded results that are reflective of the ballots cast by over 18,600 voters in the district. We acknowledge this has changed the outcome from our initial unofficial and incomplete reports. And to that end, we've received multiple requests for recounts. However, today, I can assure this board and the people of District 2 and all other voters across DeKalb County that their vote and their ballots have been accurately tabulated to the assigned candidates of their choice. During the hand tabulation, we used 3-person teams to verbally and visibly confirm each and every ballot. Because we delayed the initial certification, we were able to perform concurrent audits of all other contests and races to confirm the initial technical error was isolated to the District 2 contest. This action would normally be performed after May 24th and before the state certification deadline, but our efforts shifted to ensuring an accurate count in this District 2 contest. Internal county audit processes include the review of Election Day recaps from the precincts and the statement of votes cast comparisons, and an additional audit of batch sheets completed during hand count and data entry into the database. So there was a comparison there. And we followed up with a detailed review by key staff from DeKalb County's Finance Department. In addition to that, we performed spot checks of the ballot images for the following races: the governor, the Republican governor race, the Senate 55, District 55 race, the House District 82 race, and the County Commissioner 3 race. Today, I can announce before this board that these results are accurate and reflect the ballots cast via absentee ballots, provisional ballots, votes cast during the advanced voting period and on Election Day. Our team has worked around the clock to get to this point and to double and triple check our tabulations so we can certify this election, prepare for a quickly approaching runoff, and then shift our attention towards the November general election.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Okay, so we have the motion on the floor. Ms. Smith gave us the background, which I believe addresses a number of our own and some of the public questions. And I would request that if there are any specific factual questions from board members, that we give Ms. Smith an opportunity to research those and respond. But if there are specific questions regarding the statement that she just made or her recommendation, I'd like to hear those now. And I can we can begin with Ms. Motter as the maker of the motion and get others in the queue if you'd like.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, this has been an extremely unfortunate situation for all of us, our community, our voters, the board, the voter registration office, and the staff. And it has been primarily exacerbated, an already difficult situation exacerbated by the fact that the certification of this election was moved to 1 week earlier due to Senate Bill 202. And it's clear to me at this point, having that extra time as a board member to discuss preliminary incomplete results, any hand counts that might be required or any recounts that might be required, as well as the programming issues that arose. Having that extra time demonstrates that that 1 week loss was significant. Since our last meeting where we met to certify the vote, which was earlier this week, I've had an opportunity to spend a significant amount of time, not only at the over the weekend at the voter registration office. But since our meeting on Monday, I had an opportunity to ask, quite frankly, a gazillion questions of our director, our staff, our chair, our attorneys, bombarding them left and right, emails, texts, phone calls. And I've had an opportunity to learn a great deal more about the processes as well as witness those. I also had an opportunity over the weekend to listen in on a session with the individual who runs CES, which is the Center for Election Systems. And that would be a gentleman by the name of Michael Barnes. And it was during that time, sitting through that conversation, I had a better understanding with respect to the programming issues. I can say that at this point, given the advice that I've heard from our attorneys, my own due diligence that I've spent this week in anticipation of this meeting, I am satisfied with the results of the hand count tabulation as well as the outcome of the other races for the May 24th primary. Going forward, regarding our go forward plans, absolutely, and I say this to the public, we will continue our efforts to enhance procedures, not only at DeKalb County, at our voter registration office, but we will partner with the state, the Secretary of State's office and the state election board to create new procedures where there is currently an absence to address the kinds of issues that have come up during the course of this really challenging time that we have had since Election Day. So at this point, Madam Chair, I yield back to you. I may have some additional comments, but at this point, I'll yield.
Thank you. Ms. Swift, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman Smith. I just want to start by saying thank you to the public for all of your comments and your concerns. I'm going to speak for myself and just say that I, too, have been frustrated with what we are dealing with. This is a complex situation that, frankly, we did not create. That said, we as a Board of Elections are responsible for administering an election on a timeline that's been presented to us and has been created by the state legislature. SB 202 has truncated the timeline for certification. So, for example, under the old regime, today would have been the actual day that we certified the votes. It has also changed the timeline for runoffs. Again, a date that we don't control, which will still be in place. So it's imperative that we look forward to the runoff in order to allow all of the candidates to have a race and have an opportunity to campaign for that race. That said, I still have some questions, and I'm going to ask a few questions to Executive Director Smith. So with respect to the audits that you mentioned, which do give me those are good. I'm glad to hear that. Could you talk a little bit more about the audit specifically of District 2? And then and also I raised a question, or I mentioned to you potentially auditing the ballot images to confirm that they matched the ballot interpretation. So for the public, the printout of the ballots are essentially 3 pages. There's a page that shows it's the piece of paper that you sent to the scanner. And then there's another sheet that shows exactly what you voted for, the interpretation of that ballot. So those things should match. And that would confirm that what you touched on the ballot is what the scanner read. So can you talk through specifically those 2 points and what spot checks you did on those 2 areas?
Yes, thank you. I will speak to that. So for the spot checks we did on the governors in the Senate and House, and there was a Supreme Court justice and one other district, House District 50, I think it was 82, that we audited, and the Commission District 3. Out of those, we had some of those in the second database. So those 5 precincts that were impacted from redistricting were included in those spot checks. And so what we did is we had the 3, which you mentioned, the 3-page ballot image, which has on the first 2 pages, the actual questions. And then on the 3rd page, it is the result, or the receipt is what we call it. So we had reviewers check those races and then check the 3rd page to determine whether they matched. And so with that, we concluded that if any of those races that were checked had a 2% error, then there was a 98% chance that the checks would have found it. And so we're confident that that spot check was effective, and we did not find discrepancies in the randomly selected ballot images that we had the group review. And with regard to the Commission District 2 race, the additional audits that we performed, again, included enlisting the support of our county's finance department to come over and review each line, which included the batch sheets, and check them against the physical batch sheets that were written. And during that process, we found that, there were human errors that were made. But by the end of our audit, we came within 99.7% of the ballots that we knew of. And so again, the difference there was immaterial.
Ms. Swift, does that answer your questions?
Yes, for now. And I'll let the other board members ask questions. If I have any other questions, I'll circle.
Thank you. Ms. Jester, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Smith. I appreciate the detailed report. Have a couple of questions here. Can you explain the differences in the vote totals, the aggregate vote totals we've seen over the different, in the District 2 race, over the different pieces of data that have been put out for the public? Because we have more vote totals. How did that happen?
So when we were posting the incomplete and unofficial reports, there were 2 databases. And so if you weren't looking at votes in both databases, you may feel that today there's an increased amount of votes. But from our election day reporting, the numbers that we reported totaled 18,670. The hand count was at 18,647.
Okay.
And so there really was not an increase in votes. What was displayed again was because of the error, that redirected some of those votes to the candidates, the different candidates.
So within the redirection, then there was also an aggregation error.
And I don't know that I understand that question.
So including the votes going into different buckets that they shouldn't have been to this candidate or that candidate because of a programming error. The total number of votes cast was also impacted because we did have on the different spreadsheets, I think there's a significant difference between what we're seeing.
So are you referring to the spreadsheets that were posted on
our website, yeah, DeKalbvotes.com.
I'm not aware of there being a huge difference. I mean, of thousands, or if that's what you're referring to. I've seen a couple of emails come through that said, there were 2,000 more, votes or 3,000 votes, and we never could verify that from the data that we had on this end.
Okay, I'll ask the other questions, and then I will, while other people are discussing, I'll pull those numbers up too.
Okay.
And validate, so I can be more specific on that end. Okay, so another question I've had, and I think Ms. Swift may have touched on this, and I know we've talked about it before. We have an outstanding open records request for the ballot images. And where does that open records request stand with regarding our compliance with that?
Yep, I believe that the attorney reached out to the requesters to let them know that they would receive the images in the next 2 weeks, but we've completed the download. It took a long time for us to do in the midst of all of the other things that we were doing. But as of today, we do have all of those images to share with the attorney to provide to the requesters next week.
Okay, so that information has been forthcoming. And so, and I don't know if one of need to say, when did we speak with the requester? When have we 100% closed that loop and let them know? Are they aware that they can?
I believe that the attorney that handles open records requests has reached out to the requesters, but I can follow up on that.
Okay, who is that attorney?
Sean.
Last name?
Garrett.
Garrett. Okay. So, and I know, I'm sure our county attorneys are on. Hi there, Mr. Phillips. Could you guys send to the board the correspondence that you've sent to that, regarding that open records request, so that, I can cross it off my list of following up. So whatever communication you've sent, letting the requester know that they're going to get that information next week, that would be helpful. Okay, thank you, Mr. Phillips. I appreciate that. That shouldn't take, now we should be able to get that pretty quickly, I'm thinking, because we've sent that. So, okay, so I think we can expect that in the next day or so. Okay, there's that. I have some outstanding requests with the department from May 26th and May 29th regarding our logic and accuracy testing and the results from our initial logic and accuracy testing. And so I hope those will be forthcoming. I'd really like to get my head wrapped around what we did on that and what the results were. It's my understanding that, and I say this to the public too, that the actual requirements of logic and accuracy testing probably need to be looked at from a state perspective again. I think it doesn't require as much of a robust test as would be nice. Now, we can always do more, and that may be something that as a board and a department, we talk about in future meetings so that we can make sure we're, that we're satisfied with our logic and accuracy testing. So, because I'm not clear that I'm sort of starting to believe that that may not have produced a result that would have even caught some of these errors in advance of them happening. So, but if we had had more robust testing, if more robust testing had been required, then maybe we would have. So I think we as a county, and there's nothing to stop us from doing something more robust than is required by the state. So I want us to look at that since our finance department was in there looking at things, I mean, they may be, or maybe we want some outside folks to consult with on best practices for this type of testing so that we're happy with the programmatic, issues or hopefully non-issues. Hopefully everything works as programmed and designed for DeKalb County, at least going forward. I think that would be helpful. And these may be legal questions, and Mr. Phillips, they may be for you guys to answer. So basically, and this is sort of just for the public's understanding, unless there is some, there are limited circumstances in which the board can just willy-nilly order a hand recount of something. And it is the case that we did have a candidate in the District 3 Board of Commissioners Democrat primary. They requested a count through the court, and I believe that has been before the court. And it's my understanding that the court today denied the petition for a recount in the District 3 race. Am I correct?
You are correct.
Okay, so I want the public to know that there was a candidate who went to court, and the court denied it based on the facts they were presented. So there's that. So unless we see a discrepancy or error, I don't think we're allowed to. There's some very limited circumstances which we can ask for that. And we would first have to ask for a scan recount, right? We would first have to do that. And if that failed, then you could do a manual. And that's essentially what happened in the District 2 race. But there are no defects we're seeing in the other races that would generate such a course of action, unless I'm missing something. Is that correct? Yeah, okay, I see it. And
yes.
Okay, and Ms. Smith, you and your team have not, you've not identified anything in your checking and your procedures, your audit procedures after the election. You're not seeing anything that leads you to believe we need to do some recount procedures for any other race at this time. Is that correct?
Vice Chair, today, I can say with confidence that we, with the resources and the time that we had to complete all of the steps that we completed, I do not think that it is necessary to perform any additional counts.
Okay. And so, and it's also my understanding, so then following certification from this board, so let's say this board certifies today, there are places along the path where we can come back and recertify and look at things again within this election if it becomes necessary, if some new evidence comes to light. If we decide to go back based on information and look at things, we can always recertify something. Is that correct? Maybe that's a legal question, or I'm not sure who that goes to.
Mr. Phillips?
Yeah.
Yes, Ms. Jester. That's general.
Okay, so we can recertify if we decide at some point from now that we want to do that. Okay. Let's see here. And is it, and I'm told that if the board fails to certify, there are also ramifications to the board and the individual members of the board. And I think the public needs to understand that. The state election board could decide to investigate DeKalb or refer it to the Attorney General's office. We could have a court order demanding that we certify results, or BRE members could be charged criminally with a misdemeanor, it's my understanding, if we are determined that we're upholding the certification, we're interfering with an election in some way. I'm curious who would make that charge. I guess that would be the solicitor. I'm not sure who would charge us in that case, but I just want the public to know all of the things, the implications here. Now, when we went to, Ms. Smith, when we went to look at the District 2 race, and we did testing that then did not result in an adequate result for the testing, and we had to then do the hand count. Did we do a 75 mark ballot? Is that what we did? And 25 absentee ballots? That was the test, and that just didn't work. I want to make sure that we followed that rule.
Ms. Smith, did you hear?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the test deck, we, I believe, actually did 25 of the advance. It was a total of 75 initial. That's what we were doing.
Okay. I was just reading
It
the
was 25 absentee by mail, I believe.
Right.
And then
Okay. Well, and the advanced
75.
ballots would be ballots marked by an electronic marking device. So that was
Right. And we had 25 of those.
Okay, so then 25 of those, 50 of election day, and 25 of absentee. That would make sense. Okay, and that just didn't result in it didn't pass that test. So then we did the hand count. Okay. Do we have a and I will put this request in an official email so that when I get the logic and accuracy test results, I'd also like to get a copy of the ballot software log that I think is required to be kept for each instrument, each piece of equipment we have. So, okay, I want to, and I may have some more questions. I'm going to pull those numbers, Ms. Smith, so that I can should have done that. Yes, ma'am.
Well, no, because I think I know what you're referring to, and the incomplete and unofficial results. The ballots that were cast for Orson, I believe, were counted as blank in the first.
We're not in the aggregate.
In the first and second database, and the databases in the report that we knew were inaccurate. Okay. So we had, a total of in the hand counts, we counted those votes along with blank. So no votes.
Right.
So that's, you would have seen an increase there if you were looking at the incomplete files.
Okay, I'll go look back while people are talking and just.
Yeah. That's, sure. I'm thinking that may be.
That's what it is. Okay, I'll go with that. What I want to say for the public, and then I'll yield the floor, is I feel optimistic about the validity of the District 2. We have had the hand count. I'm feeling good about that. And I feel like the department handled that just like we should have. There was clearly something that went awry. And so I'm proud of the way the board took its time on Friday. Everybody, really, did the right work here on that race. So I want to commend my colleagues on the board. This has been a bipartisan agreement on this. So I'm very proud of that work. I'm proud of Ms. Smith and the department. I'm proud of Ms. Smith saying when she was going to have the numbers that they're not going to be on this day. We're going to have them on this day. I'm proud that she, just didn't cave to pressure on that. So I want to be very explicit that was good. To the folks that have presented, questions and issues systemically, I'm very sympathetic to that. I have questions about the processes and controls of the elections in our state, and it's not a DeKalb specific issue. I've learned a lot through this process about how the machines are programmed, when they're programmed, what the testing looks like, what it doesn't look like, what happens when you see an error, what might that look like, how do you fix those things, all of that. I have a lot of questions, but I don't have anything before me that suggests and comes to the level in other races that would compel me to say, we can't move forward. We can always go back and recertify. We can always keep looking. We're getting the ballot images, and that's very important to me, that this ORR is being satisfied and we are getting the ballot images to the folks that have requested them, and they will be able to look and at these ballot images. And if there's any information that they glean from that, I can't wait to hear it, because we can then deal with that information, good, bad, or ugly. But I don't have any of that right now, and I'm feeling good about what we did in the District 2 race. Nothing else gets to that status that would cause me to say I can't move forward. I'm not comfortable with all of the, like I said, all the processes and the programming. I don't want to speak for my colleagues. They probably have some of the same discomfort, but we do have to move forward in thoughtful ways. We have a lot. I mean, there's a lot. It's not just the candidates from District 2. I mean, it's all the candidates. There's other runoffs. There's other elections. And I do want the public to know these are important lessons that must be addressed and dealt with. We've got to get it, all of the defects that we think occurred in this election, they must be fixed before November. They must be. We must have better testing. We have to have robust testing. We have to have better software programming, lockdown, tested way, maybe earlier in advance, all of those things. I don't want the public to think I'm just happy to certify this election, or that my certification means I'm not going to come back and ask for something to be recertified, because anywhere along the way, I will do so if I discover anything out of sorts, because that's my commitment to the public. And while I don't speak for my other colleagues, I have a sense that they are as emphatically dedicated to the truth and accuracy of these elections as I am. I really believe that to be the case. So I want the public to hear that from me. I'm glad about this open records request, so that will help us. I look forward to getting the other information that I've requested and that ballot software log that I'm going to request. And I thank my colleagues and the staff for hard, sometimes uncomfortable work, certainly the time, and I appreciate that. So with that, I will yield the floor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Mr. Lewis, I'll go ahead and recognize you since you haven't spoken yet.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I do have some questions that may be just expand a little bit on what you've already said, Ms. Smith, and what you've answered to some other questions. But just to be clear, so when we looked at the machines, or we did the recount, we noticed that we were getting some inaccurate counts from machines in District 2, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we haven't been able to, and what you're telling us today, that those errors in those machines were specifically due to the programming error created from one candidate withdrawing. And
yes, that's what I believe.
And so you believe then that error in those machines, that even though they reported incorrectly in one race, that they were able to report correctly in every other race that was on those machines, that those machines only had one race that was incorrect.
Yes, I believe that this was an isolated event.
So I haven't seen, so I would like to see the data or what you're looking at that gives you this clarity. I didn't know until just now that you had that information that would show that it wasn't an isolated event, or that it was an isolated event. That's something I would like to see. Actually, I think it's probably something that we should see publicly. So that's my main question, really, for clarity. I do have some other questions. So Everyone knows that I've been asking for audits since we started, and we're really at we're in a time crunch now. I mean, like Ms. Swift was saying earlier, all these times and dates are placed upon us by Georgia law. So any attempt to do a recount or an audit, say, for example, there wasn't a certification today and there was an audit, we wanted an audit or something. Logistically, could you give us like what an audit or recount or something like that, logistically, what would that mean that our department would need to do? Is it something that we could call in a third party to do? Or is it something that the staff would have to do? How would that impact the department and its ability to continue to do all the other necessary preparations for the upcoming runoff, which we have no ability or authority to change the date for that?
Are you're asking me to respond to that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will just let you know that we had about 20 teams of 3, hand counting the district Commission District 2 race on Monday. Sunday, we had, I think, 7 or 8 of those teams. We had poll workers that we paid. We had other temporary, staff that we had to call to help us scale the production of things. And so with us having to pivot to plan and go and facilitate the runoffs, we would definitely have to utilize those same resources. And in addition to the oversight from the leadership here. And so because the runoffs, they're right around the corner, we want to make sure that we have the resources to focus our attention on the runoffs with the LNA, the ballot proofing, notifying the community of the change in precincts, the change in, the advanced voting locations, all of the things that, need to happen simultaneously. While we are continuing to finish our, processes here with the general primary election. So it would take a huge undertaking, depending on, what you're requesting in an audit and, what races and what have you, but it would require additional manpower than we have, within our department.
Okay. I guess I'm just a little concerned, and maybe other board members saw it, but I was looking at the same numbers that Ms. Jester was. So the numbers that you gave us today about the final recount numbers, we've been getting bombarded with information and in the past week, and that's something I would have liked to have seen before today, or before just now hearing about. I want to also, I know that there are a lot of issues around trying to discuss open record request because we need to protect the confidentiality of both the department and the people making the request. But I did email staff, including legal staff, to keep me informed on what was going on there. I have not seen anything from them. So I don't know for certain that they reached out to the requester or that there's been any movement on that particular issue. And I do think that, I think the petition is asking for copies of ballots, something that's a little different from ballot images, which I think are produced by the machines. So I think they want something different. I don't know. I don't want to get into legal aspects. I want to try to stay away from that, like I said, to protect the confidentiality of both parties. But that's just something else that apparently that has happened on an issue related to this election that I didn't have any information on. Another question I have is that if the election is certified today, will we be able to hold a public audit of the machines in their current state? Because, you know, I mean, we have to do testing for a primary that's coming up, but there's still publicly, no one has seen us test these machines. You know, no one has seen us do any kind of audit. So would it be possible to audit them immediately, some sort of public audit, so that the people will know, for example, that the Secretary of State's race that was carried out on a machine that inaccurately reported Commission District 2, accurately reported the Secretary of State's race on that same machine?
I don't see why, you know, you couldn't do that. We did the audit.
Okay. Can you publish the results of the audit?
I don't know why we couldn't do that.
Are they currently available?
I'm sure, yeah.
So let me clarify something here, please, because aren't the results that we have the results of the audit?
Yes.
That, I mean, the audit was the review of the results. There was not a separate.
Well, what it seems to me is that the audit is for the results in District 2.
No.
We have other paperwork that you are welcome to, you know, view, result that were outcomes of the other audits that we performed of other races. Yes, those
so
are available.
I was actually referring to District 2 specifically, but you know, if the other audits, I think we need to have that information available for public view. Let me see. I also would like to say thank you to the staff. I know the staff has been working extremely hard, and it's been very difficult on them. I think the board members have been working very hard. It's been stressful for all of us, frustrating at a lot of times. Well, you know. So I just want to move forward. Moving forward, I personally still have some concerns. Like I said, there's paperwork that you've told us, Ms. Smith, that you have that I haven't seen. You know, those are things I need to lay my eyes on to see before I can just say yes or no. I think the public needs to see that too. It would have been great if we could have had that before this meeting. But again, you know, certifying an election is a big deal. It's a huge deal. I mean, we have candidates and we have staffs and we have people that have spent, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars on their elections. And we are bound by law to do certain things. So, you know, I still kind of lean towards my position that we needed an open public audit. And we have had an audit, but it hasn't, in my opinion, because the results haven't been put out to the public, it hasn't been open.
Are you referring to the final elections statement of vote cast? Those results?
No, I'm referring to the information you told us the day that you take it. So, but that's all I have for now. You know, if I have some other issues, I'll circle back through, and I'll yield the floor for now.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I'm going to actually give the chair to the vice chair so that I can be in the queue and comment and resume any final remarks from the board. So
Okay. I'll be happy to chair from now on, and I'll see that you're getting in the queue. I believe Ms. Swift is next, unless the chair would like to speak next or be recognized after Ms. Swift.
I'd like to be recognized now.
Okay, that's
just as the last board member to speak for this time.
Okay, perfect. Okay, the chair recognizes, the vice chair recognizes the chair, Ms. Staley Livingston.
Thank you. So first of all, Ms. Smith, Director Smith, thank you for providing that explanation to us at the outset. I want to kind of restate is, I think my colleagues know this is my norm. I like to restate for clarity what I heard for the record. And it was that the irregularities that we saw in the race were directly related to programming changes that were made to the District 2 Commission, District 2 Democratic primary. And the reason that we feel confident that that was related only to that race is because of the follow-up reviews and reconciliations. What has been called an audit is actually the normal review that the staff undertakes as a part of the elections process, both before and after certification. These reviews take place, so they are not things that would that need to be noticed publicly. There was not anything in the way that they did those that was improper. They were going through the proper due diligence that we expect of them and that is asked of them for that race. I'm sorry, for an election. So I wanted to make that part clear. The other thing that I wanted to emphasize that a couple of my colleagues also mentioned was the fact that the staff was working on a very compressed timeline. And so in addition to dealing with redistricting and how that pushed some things back in their ability to move forward at the beginning of the process, we also had the reduced time for certification. As one colleague mentioned, today is the day that we would typically certify. Prior to SB 202, it would be 10 days following the election. SB 202 reduced that to 6 days. We voted on Tuesday to give additional time because of those programming errors related to Commission District 2 and the fact that doing a hand count tabulation redirected staff's attention away from the typical checks and reviews that they would have done on the election. And so those extra few days gave them the opportunity to do that. It also gave us the opportunity to bring in the individuals that Ms. Smith mentioned from the finance department to check, double check, and triple check the calculations from the hand count. So that's how this time has been spent. That is why this board voted to delay. We still have the responsibility to certify this race. As Ms. Jester noted, by law, we have that responsibility and there are consequences if we do not. The certification of a race is not and never has been a statement that everything is perfect. There is a margin of error that the director demonstrated through the count that has been well exceeded, that we are well within that. It is unfortunate that there were people who were distributing inaccurate and incomplete numbers and created an expectation that there was a major change in votes, and that was not the case. we made every effort to try to explain what is a very complex situation. But I think that Ms. Smith's explanation to us demonstrated the difference in those numbers and accounted for that, and showed that what actually happened was a misreporting of the numbers versus a mistabulation or some other more serious error. I think the final point that I wanted to make is just that we need to acknowledge not just the compressed timeline, but also the limitations in staffing. And so with regard to the open records requests and responses, we desire to be much more responsive. But when all of these issues are ongoing, it requires the attention of the department. We can throw hundreds of temporary employees and lots of assistants. There are still a limited number of people who can make decisions and a limited number of people who have the expertise to weigh in on these things. So we appreciate and thank you all for that patience and responding to that. I will also state that SB 202 specifically directed the Secretary of State's office to create a pilot to share the ballot images because that is an additional requirement that was added in SB 202. That is not something that is normally a responsibility of this department or of any county. That is a new requirement that was given to the department. And there was supposed to be a format that would allow counties to easily share that information. Unfortunately, that is not available to us. And so on top of having to do a hand count and all of the other additional work that was done in this time, they were trying to satisfy thousands and thousands of ballot images and download those and provide them to multiple people who requested it. So as soon as the department is able to get that out, I am confident that they will do that. So I'll conclude my questions and we can resume the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will yield the floor back to you.
Thank you. Ms. Swift, you are recognized.
Thank you. Thank everyone for their comments. I just have a few more questions. I really echo what the board has said. You know, I can only speak for me, but I've had a lot of questions. I've had a lot of, as I mentioned, frustrations with what has happened. So know that we are continuing to investigate and figure this out. But here are my questions. So for the attorneys, and you may not answer this, but I think it's really important that we respond to the open records request as soon as possible. And I recognize that this is a lot of information. And, you know, I don't know the formatting. Do we have a sense? And I am aware of a few requests that came in last week. And I hate to put you on the spot, but is there a sense of when you'll be able to at least get to those, or because you need to review what is being provided. So can you give us any insight on that? Especially if we're able to, at least if we are able to certify, then that isn't top of mind for you. When can we get some of these responses out?
Well, Ms. Swift, the way the process works, the county responds in 3 days, indicating an anticipated timetable for providing responsive records, indicating exceptions that may apply to the request, as well as indicating cost that may be appropriate given what was requested. In some instances, the 3-day response may even indicate that there is a need for clarification so that we can properly research the request and answer it. That's the general process to start it. Beyond that 3-day initial letter that is set by law, the response is dictated by the circumstances, how long it takes to research the letters or the documents, any redaction that's necessary, and the like. Now, the law department will work closely with the staff at voter registration and elections to help them identify appropriate ways to do whatever they need from us to respond. But all of the records that are being sought from that office will be produced by that office, and we will work with them in terms of helping with redacting and the like. But that is the process that we have. We can work with them to identify a list if this board is not clear of what's been requested and provide information in that regard as well, if that would be helpful to you.
Yes, that would be helpful because I think we, many of us have received these requests and it's not clear that the acknowledgements have been sent yet. So it would be really helpful to know where those are and to get the acknowledgements out as soon as possible because we are at that time frame. Okay, so that was my first question. So a follow-up on that would be helpful. To, I think, a point that has been raised by several members of the board around recertification. I want the public to know. So I'm going to ask the prior members of the board, have there been instances where we have had to recertify the election to allay some of the concerns from the public that if there is some new information that arises, we would recertify as needed?
So as not to make it complicated, I will answer yes.
Okay. All right. And then the final question / comment is directed at Executive Director Smith. So you might have to jump in on this, but it's really more for the public's information because I think that there is a concern about some portion of votes that are new. And I think that there seems to be a confusion between ballots versus votes. So the number of ballots cast that was reported and the number of ballots cast in the hand count for District 2 changed by a less than 2% number. That's that extra, that's that hundreds of votes that we've been talking about. The votes cast were attributed to the correct candidates in the hand count. So there is not an outstanding thousands of votes that were not shown in the votes cast or the ballots cast in the original release of the vote. So if Ms. Smith has anything to add to that, I just want to make sure I think there is confusion around that point that I want to clarify. And if you don't have to add, if I've effectively communicated what I think the sort of where people are confused.
Yes, just again, that the 18,600 plus votes included blank votes. So if we got a ballot that there was no vote cast for that race, it was counted.
So the 18,000 are the ballots cast.
Yes.
And that's the original release of those votes. They were attributed to blank votes and not correctly attributed to the right candidate. So I think that is an important point because there have been a lot of figures thrown out and there have been a lot of intimations about what's happening. There is no fraud here. There has been this is unfortunately likely human error that came down from that we didn't, and we being the DeKalb county election. So everyone else has asked the questions that I've had. I do want to see Ms. Smith, the LNA testing at some point. I will have other questions. And I want to make this comment to the public as well. We will continue to investigate this to figure out what happened. And we will also continue to make sure that we improve our processes and procedures to ensure this doesn't happen again. I know that's a lot of words for a lot of people, but all I can do is say you need to watch our actions. And I know that I'm committed to ensuring that we have accurate results. So thank you again to the board. This is a very complicated situation. This is not an ideal situation. None of us want to be in a situation, and we're working as intentionally as we can to resolve an issue that we didn't create in a manner that allows us to move forward with the elections.
Thank you, Ms. Swift, and I'll recognize the vice chair. And if there are final comments before we check in and see if we're ready for the vote, other members, please get in the queue. Vice Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple things just to, Ms. Smith, I sent you a spreadsheet in your email now with the vote tallies that are the differences, and we can get to that in a minute. For the public and for my colleagues, to the law department and to Ms. Smith, I sent an email as we've been in this meeting requesting the communication you've sent. I think there's at least 2 requesters for the ballots and or ballot images. I think the ballot images are actually a 2-page thing. And then the ballots, I guess, may not be a 2-page thing. But anyway, so I've requested that you send the board the communication you've sent to those requesters. And I want to reiterate what I heard earlier was that they've been downloaded now and they'll be ready next week for pickup. That's what I heard the director indicate. So for all those listening and have questions, that's what I'm hearing. I'm requesting to see the correspondence that our county has sent to you, whoever in the county has sent this. I'm requesting it to the board. So hopefully we should have that shortly. I've sent an email about the ballot software log, so you have that. I've also forwarded to you a recent email during this board meeting about the open records request. So there's more details from the requester about explicitly what they're looking for. So everyone has that. And so just back to that, the image or the email I sent you, Ms. Smith, and just to read into the public, the specific numbers that are questioned. On May 24th, I think it was that night, I guess it's technically in the morning, I think the 2:30 a.m. count showed an aggregate total of all candidates, and it was not inclusive of the null votes, if you will, the people that did not vote in the contest. So I'm not suggesting it did. So that was 12,639 votes. On June 1st, we had a total count that also seemed to not have, that did seem to, have some no votes in it. And that was 15,449. And then today, we have a count of 18,647. And so that includes some, I'm just looking here, some little bit of changes in vote totals and so on. And so between those two, taking out the no votes, it looks like a 419 vote difference is what it looks like as far as the people that actually cast votes. So the big difference is the people who didn't cast any votes for the public, but there's some perturbation, in the vote casting, some differences, but 419 look to be that number. So I've sent that to the director, and that would be a sort of a de minimis issue in this race. I don't think that would make any kind of change when just looking at it. So just want to say those numbers into the record. And Ms. Smith, if you want to take a look at those and provide a written response later about what those represent and how you got from point A to point B, that would be great. So thank you. And I yield the floor back to the chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Ms. Smith, were you wanting to address that now, or can we go ahead?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I can just address the 400 number. Those, again, we were in the due diligence, the period where we were reconciling. And so those votes were accounted for. And so the numbers that we're reporting today are the numbers that after the audit, process was complete, we are, submitting for your consideration today.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Ms. Motter, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have been corresponding with our council, and I had a suggestion to amend my motion. Assuming my colleagues have completed their questions and comments, I'd like to have the opportunity to amend my motion.
Go ahead.
Okay. Excuse me, I have to read this from a piece of paper. Okay. I move to amend my prior motion that the DeKalb Board of Elections certify the election results for the May 24th primary with the following amendment. This motion would also deny the requested recounts, which were received by the voter registration office by 5 p.m. today.
So we have an amended motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion of the amended motion or questions regarding the motion? Vice Chair Jester, you're recognized.
Thank you. Yeah, just have a question about the amendment. Can somebody tell me what the board has received today in regards to an official request for a recount? I'm not in possession of information.
Okay, I see Mr. Phillips coming on. Mr. Phillips, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Jester, there have been a number of requests submitted, various types of correspondence, and the volume is significant. I couldn't even tell you an exact number right now, but at this juncture, I understood the amended motion to simply state for the record that this board is moving forward, acknowledging that inherently denies those requests.
Okay, and you don't have to articulate each one. I would imagine some have come directly from candidates and some have come from other sources. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, and out of curiosity, I mean, who has standing to, I mean, a candidate, I suppose, has a type of standing in certain situations to request. Are there other entities that can request that we have to entertain? I just want to understand the rule on that.
Well, to summarize the rule for you, this board, upon a motion from a candidate or a political party, could then grant a recount, but that the statute says may, it is permissive. And at this juncture, we're really in a different space, but this is the same as what we've discussed previously.
Okay. So we've just received a handful, various ones from candidates and groups and parties and okay. All right. Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, does that satisfy your question, Vice Chair? Okay. Are we ready for the question? So there's a motion on the floor, a motion and a second to certify the May 24th general primary and simultaneously, I'm not saying it exactly the right way, simultaneously reject the all of the requests for recounts that were received by today at 5 p.m. All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
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 All opposed? All opposed, please say nay.
Nay. Nay.
Thank you. And that motion passes 4-1. The next item on the agenda is a discussion or a decision about advanced voting locations for the June 21, 2022 runoff. Ms. Smith, you are recognized.
Thank you. I just wanted to provide an update and submit for your consideration and approval the advanced voting sites that are listed on the map that was included in the packet. We had one site that was unable to participate due to a camp that they have planned, and that is Bessie Burnham Recreation Center. And so as of today, we are preparing and proposing the sites that are listed: Dunwoody Library, North DeKalb Senior Center, Briarwood, Tucker Library, Emory, the two sites here at Memorial Drive, Berean, South DeKalb Mall, and Stonecrest Library.
So, Ms. Smith, this is a confirmation of what we voted for, or is there?
It would be an amendment to what was approved at the last meeting, because we had the recreation center to drop out since the last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know if this is, so it's under the same advanced voting request and the proposal. Because of where we are with this process, we are requesting the start date to be changed from what was approved at the last meeting, the June 11th, that Saturday, pushing it to June 13th, which is a Monday. So we would have voting from June 11th through that Friday, 7 to 7.
June 13th, you mean?
I'm sorry, June 13th through the 17th, from 7 to 7.
Okay. So what you're requesting of the board is to approve the amended list that acknowledges the location that withdrew, as well as an amended time frame to vote. Before I recognize Ms. Motter, can you clarify the reasoning behind the requested change in time frame?
Yes. So if we have to if we're going to move forward with certification, we have to notify the Secretary of State of that. And then we have to receive the database for the runoff. And so to allow us time to proof the ballots, to perform the LNA testing, to inform the public of when those tests will be performed, and that's basically going to require an additional few days to adhere to the regulations that we are operating within.
Okay.
So
thank you. Ms. Motter, you're recognized.
Ms. Smith just responded to my questions. So thank you for that clarification, so that the public will understand why there is no weekend voting. And it's because of these other requirements that your staff will need to fulfill in order to be ready for voting. Thank you. I have nothing further. I yield.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Swift, you're recognized.
Thank you. Again, this is not ideal. It is not, I struggle with voting to approve a reduction in the number of days. So I guess my question is, with the additional time, is the office going to be able to conduct any additional testing that they would not normally have done? Or is it because we don't even have the time, we need this additional time to complete the testing?
We need this additional time to complete the required testing.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Swift. Any other comments from board members? Are we ready for a motion? I would have asked for one originally, but I needed to get clarity on what we were deciding, what we were voting on. So would anyone like to make a motion reflecting the conversation that we just had and the request from the director?
Do it.
Oh, yes, you're recognized, Ms. Motter.
Thank you. I move that we approve the proposed advance voting locations as stated by our director, Keisha Smith, as well as the change in dates as far as the starting date from June 11th. That date has been changed to June 13th. Sorry. Dry throat. So I move to approve the proposed advanced voting locations for the runoff as specified by Executive Director Smith, as well as the commencement date of the early voting period.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the amended runoff locations and times, please signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
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 All opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Under items for discussion, we have one emergency polling place changes, and Director Smith is recognized.
Thank you again. I just wanted to alert the board that we have had some additional changes or last minute drop-offs for the polling places for election day, the runoff. And so what we're working to do over the course of the next few days is to identify replacements for these precincts. The Clarkston Community Center, the Cohen Recreation and Tucker precincts are not available for the runoff, the upcoming runoff. So as soon as we are able to identify those replacements, we will have to convene again. And of course, we'll work with our PR consultant to make sure that we are providing adequate notice as much as we can around the changes.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions about this for the director? I have a question. I'm curious, it's related, not tangentially related. What is the status of our precinct cards?
So we do have them and we are going to work to mail those out. We just received them.
Okay.
So
thank you. And so we'll have to, in addition to sending those out, since we just got them and we were supposed to have received them well in advance of the primary so that our voters knew where their new precincts were. We'll also have to send notice of changes for whatever number of people are affected by these changes to the poll locations for the runoff. Okay.
We're prepared to do that.
Okay, and I'm confident that you all and our PR firm can handle that. But thank you for letting us know the status. Okay, so I think that concludes. We do not need an executive session, and so we can move to board comments. And I'm gonna have to keep a running list of like which order I went in because I just never remember. So I'm gonna, I think, go backwards. But Ms. Swift, you're recognized if you'd like to make comments.
Sure, thank you. So again, I guess I wanted to just say that this is the situation we're in, is a situation that none of us want to be in. Broussard's name shouldn't have been on the ballot, and the elections office removed him and did what they were supposed to do. Unfortunately, we cannot control the programming of the touch screens and scanners, which was out of our control. But that's neither here or there. And I'll speak for myself on this. I'm frustrated about this whole situation, but we have to be thoughtful and we have to complete our duty as a board of directions to ensure that the runoff happens and that we certify what we can be satisfied with as the complete totals for the election results. I'm satisfied with the audits that with the reconciliation of the votes that were conducted by the office, as well as the hand count of District 2, and confirmation that the ballot images and the interpretation were consistent. This is a complex situation. This is not an ideal situation. This is not a situation that we are not going to continue to investigate, because we don't accept it. And we are going to continue to figure out what we can do to make sure it doesn't happen again. And if any additional information arises, we will recertify. I want to thank the members of the community who have been present during the hand counts, who have raised fair questions, who have called all of us out on what we're doing. I recognize that as a community member myself, that's important. But I do want you to know that every member of this board is working on your behalf, and we are working and we are trying to be thoughtful and move in the best ways to conduct the elections and to have accurate results. And so while this is an unfortunate situation, we will continue to do the work and be thoughtful, and we will continue to work to ensure that our procedures and policies are in line and make sure that something like this doesn't happen again. So thank you all for your time. I want to thank also the members of the staff. They are in a situation that nobody wants to be in. And I think that our director has handled this situation with grace. I want to thank the members of the board. We have all had difficult conversations with each other, with our attorneys, with members of the public. And we have done that in a way that is respectful, and that has gotten us to where we are. We are comfortable with moving forward with the certification and the runoff. So I want to thank everyone, and I yield my time back.
Thank you, Ms. Swift. Mr. Lewis, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. As always, I want to say thank you to the staff. I know that they do a lot of hard work, a tremendous amount of hard work. They're there hours and hours and hours and 7 days a week. So nobody really sees what goes on behind the scenes. And I can say that it doesn't matter who I've spoken to, whether it's someone checking me in at the polls, or one of our senior staff, or the director of the staff, or our department director. They're always forthright with me and honest and candid, and I appreciate that. And I do trust their integrity. And I am very appreciative of their guidance and their understanding of our election law and our election process. So I appreciate that. And I think that they have done a good job during this time in fulfilling their duties to us and to the public. Also, we have a lot of volunteers that help us through the process. It could be people who do poll watching. It could be people who adjudicate ballots or do ballot duplication. These are members of our community who perform a tremendous service to our county, and no one knows about it. I want to thank them. Very often we just see the same people doing it all the time. So it's a small number of people in the county who are helping to carry the weight for all of us. So thank you all very much for that. The candidates, I think, during this particular election have been very helpful to us. I think a lot of the issues that we've seen, we would not have seen them without them coming forward and bringing certain issues to light. Obviously, this is important to them because they're running for office. And without them, they are members of the public. They are residents of DeKalb. So just like all members of the public and residents of DeKalb, I personally, as a board member, rely on their input and their support in helping to make decisions for this board. We're a 5-member board, and we all come from different backgrounds. We have different perspectives, and we have different levels of importance on the information that we hear. I think that strengthens the board. I personally feel in my interactions with the board members to this point that everyone is genuine in their concern for DeKalb County. So I appreciate that. And I think in all cases, we work well together, whether we agreed or disagreed. This has been a very difficult period for us. It's a first time for this board. Maybe, I don't know of other counties, but it may be one of the first times in Georgia that we've had to one of the few times in Georgia that we've had to basically push the boundaries of election law to try to ensure that we certified that we felt secure about an election before certifying it. There are questions still, I think, as when we hear people say that we will continue to investigate, I think that is saying that there are still questions. I trust that the board will continue to do that. And I just, again, want the public to know that there are people here who, are trying to work on their behalf. And it's not easy. Everyone has a family. People give up days of work, which means income to come here. They give up time from their family. And and we're all members of this county, and this is important to us. So when I look at a vote and an election and our process, I know not only think about the process and the laws, I think about how it's just going to affect my mother, who has been voting for probably 80 years. Well, let's say 70 years. I don't want to give away my mom's age. And my great aunts and uncles who are still voting, along with my next door neighbors who ask me and they share their concerns. So I just want people to know that we are all here and we care. And I think that DeKalb is fortunate in this respect. There are other places that would have swept this issue under the carpet, and the public may not have seen what they have seen today. So I want to encourage the people to continue to keep us informed, to continue to give us ideas and approaches that we can take. And I want them to trust that I want them to be able to trust that we will continue to listen to them and that we will work in their best on their behalf. And remember, the five of us are not just board members. We are residents of DeKalb, and we care about what happens in our county. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Ms. Motter, you're recognized.
Thank you. Extraordinary, Herculean. That's what I saw over the weekend, basically over the past 10 days since Election Day on the 24th. I am privileged to work with these colleagues on the board. Their passion around making the voting experience a good experience, as well as ensuring the accuracy of the counts, is beyond stellar. We are on the same page in terms of our passion, in terms of our service to our community, to DeKalb County with respect to voting. I really want to give a shout out to Ms. Smith. Really an extraordinary situation, a volatile situation, an intense situation, a lot of communication issues, some factual information, some not so factual information circulating among social media, in other places, in conversations and texts, phone calls and whatever, and having to navigate under those circumstances, being a new director to DeKalb County, just shows that Ms. Smith has the right stuff. She has integrity. She is candid, and she will follow through when she says she's going to do something. I think we've seen that. And the same goes for her staff. They have carried a load, a huge burden these past 10 days to get us where we are today. And saying thank you is not adequate, quite honestly, to the staff. And that also goes to the temporary workers that we pulled in and all the other individuals, too numerous to mention their title or responsibility. So it really takes a village to pull off an election, as well as to do the counts, tabulate, audit, etc. So it has been really a privilege to see my colleagues do their thing and work their passion in real time. It's been quite impressive. I also want to echo something that Mr. Lewis stated with respect to the community volunteers that also help us get to the end of the election results to help us with certification. That's the vote review panel. I don't think Mr. Lewis used those terms, and the vote review panel is basically not within most members of the public's mind. Most of the public don't recognize that there is such a thing, and the importance of the vote review panel having that in place to ensure the accuracy of the ballots cast, the votes cast within those ballots. And we do have quite a few regular folks who do show up to serve on the vote review panels, and we thank you. And just a note to the public, the vote review panels are bipartisan in nature. And there is, with respect to nonpartisan races, a vote review panel for that. So, and these are members of the community. And so we thank you guys, and I think you guys don't get enough credit from many of us and any kind of call outs. So I'm doing that here. I gotta say, these past 10 days going through this, our board members, we've had a lot of conversations, a lot of candid conversations, a lot of vigorous conversations, a lot of passion. And what that informs me is that we feel a lot about what has transpired in terms of this intense situation that we found ourselves in. And it's quite clear in these conversations that I've had with my board members, with Ms. Smith and her staff, that we all are very much interested. And I want to make sure that the public understands, we understand that we had issues here, and therefore we are going to follow through and endeavor very quickly and as hard as we can to get more procedures in place on the county level, as well as to reach out to the state to ensure that there are rules at the state level to not only help us, DeKalb County, but to also help other counties should they have a similar situation themselves. I also have to thank our attorneys. We had a lot of attorneys shift through in and out, especially over the holiday weekend, over these past 10 days. And we are very tough on you, myself included. And I hope you take that as an indication that I have a passion for this work that I do, as well as my fellow board members. So I want to thank you for your advice, for allowing us to lean on you from time to time, and also for being full of integrity, as well as a lot of patience when we are pushing back. So I have to thank you. And and I have to thank our chair as well, because she has done an extraordinary amount of work behind the scenes, working side by side with our executive director. I think many of us have said many times, you know, we are unpaid volunteers on this board. We have real jobs in our real lives. And many of us had to make some sacrifices to do what we needed to do to get to certification. And I really got to tip my hat to our chair, Ms. Loman Smith. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for being a support person to the extent that I needed support along the way and to answer questions. And I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Motter. Vice Chair Jester, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I echo a lot of the sentiments that my colleagues have shared. I want the public to know, should anything arise during any of the open records requests that we're fulfilling, that people are going to look at through any of the procedures that we go through subsequently, to any questions we ask, if there's anything that certainly leads me to any other conclusions than what we are certifying today, the public will be alerted, certainly by me, and I'm sure my colleagues will join me in that effort, because I'm just dedicated to getting the accurate results out, whatever they may be. So I'm going to continue to follow up on where we are with data, on these open records requests, on the software ballot log, and you can rest assured that when we come to the next election cycle, the logic and accuracy testing better be different than it was this time, and it better be more robust. And we certainly better get our notifications all right. I will be down at that testing. I will have lots of questions about that testing, and those results need to be made public and posted on our website in ways that they haven't before. The testing has been open to the public, but I don't think we generate results that are digestible on our website. So I think that needs to change. And we need to make a big deal out of this testing for the public. I'm certainly going to devote my time to that. I'm going to become very interested in the ballot development process and the programming development process for these machines and the scanners, so we can communicate in a more granular level of detail to the public on all of these particular actions that transpire in the preparation for an election. So I've learned a lot through this process. This is my second election. We had the municipal elections, and this is my first primary election as a board member. I have not been on the board for yet a year, so I've certainly learned things about this. And I want to agree with my colleagues who have thanked the public and various groups who have helped us along the way, because I have found most of the information that I've gotten and the questions that I've been asked to find answers to, I found them very helpful for my own work on this board. And please continue to hold us accountable. Please continue to follow the process and ask questions. I hope more and more people will start to participate in the process. We're always needing volunteers. We always need workers, poll workers, and this is a wonderful way for you to engage in democracy. I want to also speak, people have talked, Mr. Lewis spoke really eloquently a bit ago about people, his mom voting. And, I really love hearing about that. And I want to speak to the candidates. I've been a candidate, I've won races and I've lost races. So I guess that gives me a unique perspective on that. And I hope that every candidate that ran, no matter what happened, reads The Man in the Arena speech by Teddy Roosevelt, because it is not the critic who counts. It is the man in the arena. And you put yourself out there, and you are all winners because of that, because we don't have democracy without people putting their name on a ballot and standing up for something. And people get to choose. If we don't have choices, we don't have a representative republic. And so thank you for it takes courage. It takes real bravery to put your name on that ballot. And it takes real courage and real bravery to offer yourself up for public service and take the slings and arrows. It's not easy. And I commend all of you who were courageous enough to put your name on that ballot. And because I know exactly what that feels like in winning and defeat, there is no way that I would not safeguard the votes of this county I'm absolutely dedicated to that, no matter the outcome. And so I want all of the candidates to know, because I know the blood, sweat, and tears and hours away from your family that you have put in. And I know that what your supporters have done for you and all of the voters, that their votes count. And so I just want you to know, I see that, I acknowledge that work. And I commend again all the candidates for running. So I wanted to acknowledge that group of people. Sometimes we don't think about them so much. And I mean, we do, but you know, we're talking about the voters and we're talking about all the staff and all of our time. It's a real emotional roller coaster for candidates. And I am sure this extra time that we've taken has been very strenuous, particularly on the candidates in that race. So thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for your strength and endurance. Thank you for offering yourself for service, every single one of the candidates. So, and again, I promise the public I will be very engaged in all the processes that I have enumerated, that I have very specific questions about and concerns about. I will follow them with regard to this election. And if anything is yielded from any of our research that the public needs to know about, that concern me or that would change anything, you will know. You will certainly know from me. I'm sure the entire board would join me in that, but you'll certainly know from me. And I will be very involved in those processes going forward, the ones that I saw as inherently weak and needing some reforms. So I will end there. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to my colleagues for a robust meeting and discussion and great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, colleagues, for your remarks. I want to use my time to put on the record a thank you to our department, to our poll workers, to all of the partners and volunteers who helped us carry off a successful election. Unfortunately, the irregularities that were directly related to one race overshadowed the incredible work that went into pulling off this election that was going on for months before we got to Election Day. And you deserve acknowledgement for that. We appreciate you, and we thank you for the extra effort that you put in to regain, to re-win the confidence of the public and this board as a result of those unfortunate programming issues with regard to District 2. The second thing that I'll say is I think it ties in with something that a couple of my other board members have said, and it's really about our role, our philosophy as a board, and that we consider the community to be our partners. A couple of the issues that were brought to our attention in this election were brought to us by members of this community. A voter who made us aware of the redistricting issue that the staff immediately responded to and reached out to the Secretary of State for help with. That was brought to our attention by a member of the public and a commissioner who brought to our attention the discrepancies in the vote totals in the District 2 race. We consider the community to be our partners, and we expect to continue to work with you all as our partners to administer elections in this county in a way that is, I'm making up the word integritous because there should be an adjective for integrity, but in a way that is reflective of integrity and accuracy and excellence. And in service to that, I will ask that we please be thoughtful about the information that is put out as fact. There was a great deal of confusion and in some cases panic created because of incorrect numbers, incorrect interpretation of numbers, and asserting conclusions that were not supported. And we want to work with you all as partners. If you have questions, if you have concerns, please reach out. We do have jobs and families. We are volunteers. Our staff will make every effort to be responsive and urgent in that response to make sure that there's clarity and that you understand what the situation is, and if there's an error, that they will address it. I think that's what we learned from this. In every situation with haste, we addressed it and our staff responded to it and urgency. And we thank you for that. So can I get a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor of adjourning the meeting, please signify by raising your right hand, saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.